Hello, everybody. Welcome to Last Laps, where we circle the track for all the latest and greatest happening in the world of F1 this week. I'm Tiggy Vallon. You may know me from Paddock Project, and I am here with Adam Ferris, sports creator extraordinaire, in the passenger seat. What's up, Adam?
What up, Tiggy? How we doing?
Doing well. Are you recovered from Vegas? I know we were both on the ground this weekend.
I feel like I need a little bit more sleep, but for the most part, coming off of that crazy Vegas GP high, I think all things considered, I'm doing pretty solid. How about you?
Same. I always need at least 3 days to recover from the Vegas Grand Prix in particular. It hits like no other, the night race factor, everything else, the lights. You just never know what time it is in Vegas. So anyway, yes, I think we're on the same page. But today we're going to be bringing you all the hot topics from the week in F1, giving our takes, and there was a lot to go through. So we're going to get into it. Let's start with a Vegas recap. I think for lap one, we got to talk about all the racing action that happened this weekend on this street circuit, this night race, everything that makes Vegas the unique race that it is. So maybe let's just start with quali, because that was probably one of the craziest qualis I've ever seen. First of all,
that was wild.
The conditions. I mean, the announcers were being very dramatic, but I think it was worth the drama. It was rainy. The visibility was horrible. It's the first time we've seen wet tires in God knows how long. Like, those things come out every once in a blue moon. And yeah, it was just pretty crazy what the drivers had to go through, especially given that this is a new track. It's only the third season that this track has been on the calendar. It's a street circuit. There aren't very many runoff areas. So it was a huge feat for these drivers to do what they did. I think we only had one incident, Alex Albon crashing out of quali. But aside from that, it was relatively clean, which I was pretty surprised about. We had a Lando pole for quali, which I wasn't expecting to happen. I mean, we talked about his comments coming into this weekend. He wasn't that confident. This isn't a track that the McLaren car loves as much as they like Qatar and Abu Dhabi coming up. So yeah, I was happy to see Lando snag pole there. Unfortunately, that did not translate to a race win for him. That race was lost on the first turn of the first lap of this race by Max Verstappen, who was starting P2 and forced an error for Lando, who went wide. And Max just took the lead from there and never really looked back. Adam, I'm curious your thoughts on that Max performance and that Max start, because that was just a vintage Verstappen move.
Absolutely. Yeah. The turn one madness was simply lovely madness at that. And, I think really quickly back to qualifying, I just wanted to touch on, I think the expectation of Max being his dominant self in the rain is simply that. It was expected. But with Lando, we talked about it last episode. I mean, I was super excited for him to get pole. And I was also really, really excited to see Carlos get P3. And that obviously, unfortunately, that didn't translate, with his success in the Grand Prix itself. He finished pre-DQ P7, post-DQ P5. But as a Carlos, fan individually, as a driver, I was really, really excited to see that, at least, from, getting P3 in qualifying. And so was hoping that would translate over to the race. But yeah, I mean, back to your point, Tiggy, in typical Max fashion, again, it's almost like you want to be excited, but it's kind of expected at this point. But yeah, I think you would have probably agree that it was even pre-DQ, it was disappointing to see, and he pulled kind of a Schumacher-esque move right from the get-go, right? Which was exciting to see, but it just didn't end up well for him after that turn, that turn one.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. But yeah, we had Max sort of driving off into the distance for a lot of the race. He was even able to pit and still come out ahead, which always is a sign of dominance. So good for Max Verstappen on that one. It squarely keeps him in the title fight, which we will get to. Some other highlights from the race. We had Kimi Antonelli, a rookie, driving from P17 to podium after the disqualifications. And that was not without a 5-second penalty for a false start, which that was crazy. On the TV, it doesn't look like anything happened, but they have sensors underneath. So even if they move just a millisecond ahead of time, you're done for and you get a penalty. And so Kimi had that, but was still able to get a podium in this race with the McLaren disqualifications, which we have a lot to talk about on that front, which we will get to in a second. But
if you recall, sorry, Tiggy, if you recall, I think there was somebody on the last episode, the hot take. You remember my prediction? Was it both of ours?
We both had. I said no McLarens on podium.
Yeah, and I said there would be a rookie on podium, which
we both
eventually Yeah, eventually panned out that way. I think I might have said Isaac Hadjar, but we'll take a Kimi podium because the rookie on podium came correct. So I'm not mad about that. Also, I just realized, I know it's not a Vegas GP hat, but I got to pull a Tiki here, and it's going to be much more appropriate if I put on the Las Vegas hat right there. So I know it's football, so disregard that. But the hats are expensive in Vegas. Yeah, the hats are very expensive in Vegas. So this is what I had here in the closet space. So we're going to pull out the Vegas hat. But anyways, awesome to see Kimi on pole. I mean, excuse me, podium. Ooh,
yeah, so good to see Kimi on podium, back-to-back podiums, and he's just cementing himself as a rookie to watch. So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. We have to talk about this McLaren double disqualification. So this came in after the race happened. The investigation came in hot, probably around like midnight our time in Vegas. And so I saw the investigation before I went to bed, and I knew usually when you see a disqualification for something like plank wear, that's a slam dunk DQ. So I had a feeling I would be waking up to a double Miss McLaren disqualification, which is probably one of the craziest things of all time. And I think we have to talk a little bit more about that. So what happened, this is our next lap sort of around the track, is that the skid block wear on both cars was below the 9mm thickness threshold. And McLaren said in a team statement that the car experienced more porpoising. That's a word I haven't heard in a season or two. More porpoising than in practice and than was expected. And that they're quote unquote investigating the issue. I guess they didn't see this data in practice. So pretty crazy. And Andrea Stella, the team principal, and the team more broadly, of course, apologized to both drivers. They noted that the FIA did confirm there was no foul play here. This was just a big mistake, but a huge mistake and a very consequential mistake at one of the most important times in the season. You have two drivers who are fighting for their very first world championship. There are now only 2 races left to go, and it is coming down to the wire. And to have a mistake like that, I can't even fathom how Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri is feeling right now. But Adam, what are your takes?
I was just gonna say, Tiggy, for those that may not know, could you kind of describe, so like how does something like this happen? Is it, the ground clearance of the car? Is it the Vegas, how the street circuit is set up itself, given that this was on the streets of Vegas? Could you just kind of describe, for those that may not know, porpoising, kind of how this exactly happens?
Yeah. So porpoising is when the car does exactly what it sounds like. It sort of bounces up and down, and on a tricky street circuit where the roads are bumpy, they literally don't even close the roads to road cars until a couple hours before the race begins. So there are imperfections on the road. It's not like a permanent classic track that we see at other races. And so all of that can contribute to a car, especially if the setup is different, which it sounds like this was just a McLaren issue rather than a broader car issue. But because for whatever reason with McLaren setup, it was causing this bouncing up and down, which means that the bottom plank of the car is just getting scraped and scraped and scraped, and it gets below this thickness that the FIA requires. So I can't believe it. I mean, again, it's not foul play, but it's like, how do you make this mistake at this point in the game? Especially you're the constructors winning team this year. It's almost hard to even believe.
Yeah. And so, I mean, such a huge blow to both McLaren drivers' confidence, right? I mean, especially Lando. But to your point, the investigation announcement was around midnight local time, obviously post-race. And this is kind of one of those moments where it's like, you remember where you were when it happened. I was on the casino floor with friends. And if you've never been on the casino floor, there are various yells of excitement from the roulette table to the blackjack table of people winning and having a good, good hands. This was a yell of distraught amongst me and our friend, myself and my friend group. We couldn't believe it. And to your point, usually when something like this is announced, specifically with a skid plate, it usually doesn't end up in the driver's or team's favor. So, yes, we were very shocked and distraught, to say the least.
Have you seen those memes? There's one like a Lord of the Rings. No, not Lord of the Rings. Game of Thrones meme with Oscar Piastri. That's like, tell McLaren, I want them to know it was me. Like Oscar's sabotaging his team after everything that's gone down this season. I loved that one. I thought that was hilarious. Obviously, Oscar has nothing to do with this, but the memes coming out of this has been next level. I want to talk about what this means for the Drivers' Championship, because we came into this weekend with a 3-way fight: Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Oscar Piastri. And we thought that maybe Lando would be able to take it or at least get as close as possible to it being a slam dunk this weekend, but that did not happen with the double disqualification. So I want to go through some of the scenarios. We have 2 races and a sprint left in the season, and everything is on the table amongst all 3 of them still. So we have Lando at 390 points, and then Max and Oscar are currently tied both at 366. So they're only 24 points behind Lando, which is pretty crazy. So for Lando, the ball is still in his court. He controls his own destiny. Any combination of finishes this week in Qatar that lets him pad his lead by 3 points will clinch him the title this weekend. So he could very much do it, end the story, win the championship in Qatar, which is a sprint weekend. So there are more points on the table. For Oscar and Max, it's a little bit more of an uphill battle. To stay alive for Abu Dhabi, they must win and Lando must perform poorly, which means mathematically there's a world where they can stay alive if they come 4th, but Lando must get 0 points in that scenario. So there are a lot of different scenarios that could happen, but essentially Max and Oscar need to finish as high up as possible, which means a win, P2, P3, and Lando has to be behind them. So we'll see if that is the case, but I'm curious your thoughts and predictions on what's the order going to be.
I am nervous for Lando. I coming into this race, the Vegas GP, I was like, as I'm sure you were too. I mean, Lando performs well. He continues to do so. Basically, he does anything but DNF. And it would have been, for the most part, smooth sailing. Again, given the situational, just the situation as it is, there are various things that could happen. But anything but DNF, given that, especially the prior success of prior races that Lando has had, would have set him up in a pretty good situation. But I don't know if you would agree or not, Tiggy, but I'm going to go with Max, Lando, and Oscar of these 3.
That order? So Max first, yes, then Lando, then Oscar. Wow.
Correct. I think it's going to be one of the greatest comebacks we've seen, and who better to do it than Max? I'm not even a Max fan, to be honest with you. So
it would be the greatest comeback, I feel like, of all time, or at least up there. I'm going to disagree with you. I think Lando's still going to take it. The ball is very much in his court. It's still an uphill battle for Max and Oscar has just not been there, unfortunately. Max is the one that I really think is the challenger. So I think it's going to be Lando first, then Max is going to come second, and then Oscar in third. But I don't think it's impossible for Max to take it. So I think there are certainly a lot of people putting their money on that outcome. But I do think that the form that Lando has shown, as long as his team doesn't do anything crazy and make him disqualify another race or 2, then I think he's got it in the bag.
Yeah. And I would love for Lando to pull it off. I'm just nervous, Tiggy. I'm nervous. I mean, to your point, it could be one of the greatest, probably the greatest comebacks of all time if Max does pull it off, but alternatively, it could be one of the biggest fumbles of all time. I mean, it kind of is comparable to 2007. I believe it was the last 2 races. Lewis Hamilton was up, I want to say it was 17 points to Kimi Räikkönen, who was in second in the Drivers' Championship. And in those last 2 races, now we have to clarify, of course, the scoring situation was a little bit different back then. Now, needless to say, though, Lewis DNF'd, and then I believe he placed, 7th? And then Kimi came in and won by 1 point. And what team was Lewis on in his rookie season? It was McLaren. And so let's hope that that same kind of, bad juju doesn't come around here. But me not trying to be too cynical, I just have a feeling that Max is going to take this momentum and just run with it.
Oof, yeah, there is definitely a lot of Max momentum online. Thinking back to 2007, Hamilton's rookie year, losing the championship by 1 point is one of the craziest things of all time. But you're a big sports fan. There are a lot of sports fumbles out there. Do you have a favorite sports fumble of all time?
I got to say, I think it was the 2017 Super Bowl, right? When the Patriots were playing the Falcons. And I think it was around halftime or the third quarter. I think it might have even been in the third quarter, which is just crazy to say that. The Falcons were up, let me just check my notes, 28-3. Now, Tiggy, I don't know how much you know American football, but that is pretty much, I think the odds of them coming back and winning were like sub 1%. But as you probably know, in a similar situation, in similar vein as Max, in my opinion, eventually becoming the GOAT, there was a man named Tom Brady at quarterback for the Patriots, and he is most certainly the GOAT. And they came back down 28-3 and won that Super Bowl, which is just absurd. And to your point, one of the biggest fumbles in sports history, the Falcons. How did that happen?
That's crazy. I mean, I can get behind comparing Max Verstappen to Tom Brady, but I still think Lando's going to take it.
I know. I just like the drama. I really hope Lando takes it. Jokes and drama aside, as a Lando fan myself, but I just, sometimes you just got to go with the man who has the crazy momentum and who is just a robot and a monster behind the wheel.
Yeah.
So.
I think I would feel differently, and I think I would probably have more faith in Max taking this title if it was Lando's doing that he didn't score points in Vegas. Like, it was the team's fault. It was the car's fault. It was not Lando's fault. Like, he came in and performed at the time that he needed to by getting pole. And yes, he did lose the race to Max Verstappen on that first corner, but he did what he needed to do. He's still locked in. It was just the team's fumble on that point. But I guess that's the thing about Formula One, and that's the thing about sports. You win as a team, you lose as a team, you live as a team, you die as a team, and like it's a team effort. So if the team messes it up, like that, there goes Lando's dream,
Yeah, and I don't know, Tiki, I just get a little bit worried about Lando's confidence levels. I mean, I know that for your point, it is the team thing, and I think that McLaren, Zach Brown, and the rest of the team, they're really going to help kind of push through this, and in terms of ensuring that the confidence is still there moving forward. This isn't a Ferrari situation. We'll get to that in a moment, but I don't know. As it taking into consideration Lando independently, I just get a little worried that this is really, and again, to your point, it wasn't even his fault, but I just worry that, like, is he going to be thinking about this next race? What if something happens? Is he going to play it kind of safe? Like, is he going to be asking questions about the team? There's just a lot of, you just don't really know. And we're just going to have to see how it plays out.
And the one person we still haven't talked to, we've referenced his name several times, but Oscar Piastri, like, do we think that he's at all in contention here for the title championship? Obviously, he hasn't had the best track record over the past few races and doesn't seem to be putting up a massive challenge to Lando in the same car. But there's always that possibility that Oscar can come back as well. I don't feel super bullish on that, just given where the momentum has been, but got to throw that out there as a possibility. And I know a lot of Oscar fans and a lot of Australians out there are really hoping that comes through.
That's a good point. The discourse right now is really just Lando and Max, but it's like, you also have to take Oscar into consideration. Everybody's just talking about them too. So I agree. we'll have to see kind of how it plays out, and maybe those Australian fans will be very happy. We'll see.
Fingers crossed. I'll be happy if any one of those three wins. I mean, they've all put up a massive fight this season, and I'll be happy for any of them. Before we get to the depression of Ferrari, I do want to talk about a high point of the race, which was Kimi Antonelli. We got to take a lap on him because his performance in Vegas maybe wasn't perfect, but it was incredibly impressive. And he just continues to make a name for himself as a rookie, back-to-back podiums after the disqualification, of course. But he, like we said, drove from P17 to podium, even with a 5-second penalty of a false start. And I think the most impressive thing for me, beyond just how much he moved through the field, was the fact that he did 48 laps on the same tires. That is like one of the craziest things ever. A, for any driver. B, for a rookie. First time he's driving on this track, a very difficult track to get right. And no one else was able to do anything like that. So shout out to Kimi. I think he deserved driver of the day on that one. But
I completely agree. This was a masterclass, and it was so impressive to watch. I was just kind of scrolling through social media after the race, and it was kind of cool because I saw a moment where Kimi kind of went up to Max, and clearly, a younger driver looking up to, as we just talked about, one of the GOATs, and was kind of sharing his excitement. And Max I couldn't exactly make out what was being said, but it was probably something like, Max, did you just see I finished, P4 at the time, and Max was like, what? You could just see Max's like visceral reaction. And it was just a cool moment to see, because clearly it was just like, hey, did you just see how good I did? And Max is like,
so
heck yeah,
cute.
It was an awesome moment. So I was super happy for Kimi. And, I think, as we talked about, I think my prediction was Isaac on the podium, but I will absolutely take a Kimi podium, especially coming from P17, especially 48 laps on, one set of time. It was just impressive. There's no doubt that he's just going to be a problem in a good way in the years to come.
Yeah, Toto Wolff is so happy with himself right now. The other
Very.
social moment I loved about the Kimi podium was, did you see the Mercedes reel of them like bringing the club to Kimi, where they brought out like a
I did.
DJ thing and they had Kimi out in his helmet dancing, because he's not old enough to attend a club in Las Vegas in the US. He's still a teenager. So I loved that moment, just a little team celebratory action for him. But we got to shout out the rookies, because speaking of impressive rookies, Kimi is also joined by Bortoleto, Hadjar, and Behrman as nominees for this year's Autosport Awards. And fan voting is officially open from now through December 15th. Go to autosport.com to cast your vote. I'm really excited about these awards. They always happen in London and they'll be taking place in January. Adam, do you have a rookie of the year vote?
I mean, how could you not vote for Kimi after that drive? I would, to be honest, before, I'm a little bit biased, but before that race, I'd probably go with Isaac. But I just love how Isaac drives, but you got to go with Kimi. I mean, that was seriously one of the most impressive races, especially from a rookie, we've seen this year. I mean, that was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, incredible. I'd also throw my hat in the ring for Kimi. I think before this race and the race before with his double podiums, I would have given it to Isaac Hadjar, just because Kimi had a little bit of a down streak in the middle of the season, but he's definitely back and he's ending the season on a high note, which I'm stoked about. Well, now that we've had that moment of excitement, let's talk about the depression of Ferrari woes. Their lack of success this season has just been one of the big storylines, and it does seem to be piling on. And I don't want to be too dramatic. They're still sitting, I guess, are they fourth now in the Constructors' Championship? They're fourth, I think. I think it goes McLaren, Mercedes, Red Bull, and then Ferrari. But they're still in contention for second or third, although it is a little bit of an uphill battle for them. But Lewis Hamilton qualified last, which I think it was the first time a Ferrari driver has qualified last since 2009. It's a horrible stat to throw out. I'm really sad about myself that I just said that, but it is true. And yeah, his spirit just seems beyond deflated. He did go from P19. He started P19 because Yuki started in the pit lane. He did go from P19 up to, I think it was P13 or something on the first lap. It was crazy. He had an incredible start, moved through pretty well, did finish P10, and then that became a P8 after the disqualifications. But he just seems really down in the dumps. Like, he's a 7-time world champion. He seems to have run out of optimism. He's had some really horrible, sad comments. He said something along the lines of, it's been the worst season ever, and no matter how much I try, it seems to be getting worse. He said that he wasn't looking forward to next season, really, that he can't wait for this to be over. I'm curious your thoughts on this. Like, I know it's only been the first season. There's a regulation shift in 2026. We'll see what happens, but I hate to even ask this question, but do we think that maybe Hamilton's career might come to a close sooner than expected, just given the way things are going?
You just gave me goosebumps. I hope that doesn't happen, but he just seems so unhappy. I mean, I can point to 2 other things outside of the race where he looked happier, and one of them was pretending to be a Lululemon worker at the Lululemon on
That was great.
Vegas Boulevard, and he looked like he was having a blast there. And there were a couple other activations where he showed up and looked like he was having a lot of fun, but those moments seem to be the peak of his Vegas Grand Prix experience, which is just sad. It's really unfortunate, and I hope that there's some route to success for Lewis, but he just seems very down on the team, very down on the entire situation, and it's just been sad to see as a fan.
Yeah. The other moment where he looked incredibly happy was doing hot laps with Beyonce and Jay-Z. He got to drive them down the Vegas Strip. That looked incredibly fun and pretty cool to be able to do that. I mean, obviously it's Lewis Hamilton. He has incredible star power himself, but to take Beyonce and Jay-Z for a hot lap is probably peak life experience, I'd have to say. So at least that made that weekend a little bit better for him.
The celebs are out and about in Vegas, that's for sure. And yeah, that probably would have been my peak moment, even if I was Lewis. I'd be super happy to take Beyonce and Jay-Z out on a hot lap. But yeah, it's just we hope the best, but we can only hope in our situation.
He does always seem to bounce back. I don't think that he's going to retire. Definitely not the end of this season. And hopefully next season is better. Like we said, new regulations, new car. He's had a year under his belt to get to know the team and the people and everything a little bit better. But yeah, I hate to see it. Well, maybe on some brighter news, our next lap, let's talk about F1 Academy because it was the finale in Vegas and we have crowned a champion, Dorian Pain. She's the Mercedes driver for F1 Academy. This is her second season in F1 Academy and just incredible racing, an incredible fight the whole way through. The title fight did come down to the last race weekend between Dorian and then Maya Vug, the Ferrari driver. And there was some heartbreak in race one where Maya she DNF'd on the formation lap and lost her front wing. And so that made it a little bit of an uphill battle in race two for her to even be in contention for that championship. But Dorian was able to clinch it. Very exciting and so happy for this series. Like I've been following and covering this series since its very first debut season in 2023. And to see the growth and to see the excitement and all the fans coming into the paddock and the incredible on-track action, but also off-track happenings, like what Susie Wolf, the director of F1 Academy, is doing for that series is just crazy. The commercial opportunities. I attended the Lego launch announcement this weekend where Lego announced that they're going to be fielding a car next season for F1 Academy and also releasing a Speed Champions version of that livery. Just so cool. So I'm really happy for the drivers of F1 Academy, the team, and just all the female fans and aspiring engineers, drivers, etc., who can see themselves in this sport more so than before this series existed. So cheers to F1 Academy. I'm curious, Adam, if you caught any of that action.
I did. We were right next to the track when that moment with Maya happened, and we were just, crushed for her. But to your point, exciting, awesome win for Dorian. And to your point, I mean, it's just so exciting to see the progression of F1 Academy over the years. And I mean, you yourself, Tiggy, you're rocking the Hello Kitty
I am.
And another partnership along with Lego. I had to give you the shout there. And so it's just awesome to see how things every year just seem to be progressing in the sport. And exciting times.
Yeah, so excited. Sad that the season's over, but it's going to be exciting next season. And we're going to have some fresh faces on the grid. But speaking of next things to look out for next, let's talk about the Qatar GP. We are gearing up for that. It also features the last sprint of the season, which we talked about. And there's one interesting thing I want to say about this race before we get into predictions. But for Qatar, they have implemented, the FIA and F1 have implemented this kind of artificial pit stop rule where cars can't go more than 25 laps on the same set of tires. So that forces an at least 2-stop race, which they did this sort of due to concerns around tire wear, but then also to sort of force strategic variety and variance to keep things excited. If you remember back in Monaco, they mandated a 2 pit stop race, which did not do anything to help the entertainment, although that was the goal. But it's a controversial call. Team principal of Haas, Ayo Komatsu, literally said that he thinks it will, quote unquote, destroy the race. So there's people have mixed feelings on this, but I'm curious, just given all of that, Adam, what your predictions are for Qatar, the sprint, the race, the whole weekend.
I feel like I've just sound like a broken record, but I just think given the momentum and the dominance that Max had, I just got to give it to Max. In terms of we could see differences from the sprint to the actual race itself. We could have a Lando sprint win and like a Max Grand Prix win, but I don't know. I would, if I was a betting man, which sometimes I am, I would not bet against Max in this situation right now.
All right. So you think Max is gonna win the race and the sprint or potentially split?
Maybe let's say Lando takes the sprint and Max gets the Grand Prix win.
Okay. I'm going to go opposite. I think Max is going to get the sprint. Max is always the king of sprints. He just knows how to deliver in an incredibly short amount of time. So I'm going to say Max gets the sprint, but I think Lando's going to take the win, and I think he's going to clinch the title in Qatar. That is my prediction. I'm going to throw Oscar a bone here and say he also gets a podium, though. So I think our podium will be the 3 title contenders. Sorry, Mercedes. Sorry, Ferrari. But I think it will be a Lando, then Max, then Oscar podium. And I think Max will win the sprint race. Any other final thoughts you have for Qatar or anything else?
I'm actually going to switch it up on you. Instead of Oscar getting podium there, I'm going to go with Kimi. Let's see the continued success of let's see the continued success of Kimi. I feel like the past couple situations where I've thrown out some crazy predictions, it's done pretty well. So I'm just gonna, let's speak it to fruition, right?
Let's do it. I think we got lucky because it was Vegas, and Vegas favors gamblers, but I think Qatar might be not as kind to us on these predictions. So
that's fair.
Well, that's going to do it for us today. Catch more Last Laps on Motorsport's YouTube and social channels. We will catch you next time.